Hi, welcome to the Career Corner. My name is Heather Swift, and I'm delighted to be your host. The purpose of the Career Corner is to help people move from career distress to career success. Have you ever wanted to be your own boss? Have you ever thought about starting your own business? Well, this is the program for you. Our guest today is Jill Johnson. She's the CEO for the Institute for Entrepreneurial Leadership. Join us as she shares some top tips on how to succeed in being your own boss. Welcome to the Career Corner.
Thanks for having me.
Well, so tell me, how did the Institute begin?
Well, it really began as a concept shared by me and my father, who owned a business for about 20 years or so with my mother. They had a publishing company based in Newark, City News Publishing Company. And so I saw a lot of the struggles and challenges that they had, as well as some of the things that they did really well. And I also used my background in investment banking. I was a financial analyst in mergers and acquisitions at Goldman Sachs, and looked at how that world worked and wanted to really take that level of experience to small businesses, especially women and minority entrepreneurs, as well as inner city-based businesses that didn't tend to have a significant amount of resources at their disposal, and really help to get them the expertise that they needed to take their business to the next level.
How have you seen the business change over the years?
The organization, we operate very much like a business, so we've changed our business model somewhat to meet the needs and as we've seen the demand. When we initially started the organization, our intent was to work with businesses that had revenues over $250,000 and people that already had a business plan. And the profile didn't quite work out that way because what we saw was that there weren't as many businesses out there in the communities in which we wanted to work that were at that level. And the other thing that we saw was that there are a lot of businesses who didn't even have a business plan. And so we found that there were people who were writing a business plan specifically to be part of our program. So it was with that we said, well, actually there's a need to work with people to even help them get their business plan together, and that we needed to start a little bit further downstream.
Okay, so it's really starting from the very square one, not assuming that they're already at square 10 with some funding and with a business plan in place.
Right, and often people come to us because they are searching for funding. And what we find is that there are still things that they need to put in place in order to make them more capital ready.
I think a lot of people have this idea that, oh, what a great thing to be my own boss. I can take vacations whenever I want. I can work in my PJs and my bunny slippers, and the sense of freedom. But there's a lot of hard work obviously involved. Can you talk a little bit about what kind of person makes the ideal entrepreneur?
Oh, absolutely. And the great thing about being your own boss is that often you're more in control of your time and your schedule. So that's great. However, what you often find is that you're working around the clock, at least in the beginning, and that the business is always on your mind, and you're the one responsible. You don't have a boss telling you what you have to do and setting deadlines. So that can often be a challenge for some people who are really not used to that. The other thing is that, people say they are their own boss, but really your clients are your boss. So you still have to be responsible, and you still have to answer to someone. And for a lot of people, it can be a very scary thing knowing that their success truly is up to them. They have no one to blame.
Yeah, that's true. And because when you're coming into a company, you can show up a little late, or if you have a sick day, you're still being paid. But when it is all up to you, there's no excuses. It's like the buck truly stops with you.
Oh, it absolutely does. And you can't even say it's about the company politics or someone who doesn't like you or anything else. It really is about your determination to be successful.
What kind of personality makes the best entrepreneur?
At the core, Heather, I would say that it's someone who has a vision, first of all. Everything starts with a vision. And then someone who's willing to work to make that vision a reality and not just talk about it, but the person who tends to take action quickly, who can make decisions quickly. And I think also someone who is willing to get questions answered for themselves. Entrepreneurs don't have all the answers, and they're people who are used to working with a certain degree of uncertainty. If you are a person who needs absolute certainty before you make a move, or if you have to analyze everything to death, then entrepreneurship may not be for you.
What are some things you'd recommend to people that are contemplating launching something? And please talk about your program that is such a great first place to start to really get the basics down. My husband is taking your class. And what is the official name for the class?
Well, we have branded it the Quick Start Program,
Okay.
and that's what we call it. It is officially the entrepreneurial training program for the unemployed, which
Okay.
is funded by the New Jersey Department of Labor.
Okay.
They have taken a very innovative step in understanding that there are a lot of people that are out of work, and that people may not really be able to be placed back in work just because of the economy. And so that for many people, entrepreneurship is the next logical step.
And I think I've noticed, and we spoke about this earlier, that when there are tough economic times, that many people have more creativity about, gee, I can't get a job doing what I used to do. What have I always wanted to do? And how could I maybe launch that for myself? Have you seen an uptick in the past couple of years of people wanting to explore being an entrepreneur?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that a sign of that is even in our business plan competition. We have business plans that are due. This is our 5th year doing it. And we have had more enrollment earlier, more submissions earlier than ever before. And I really think that that's because when there's a downturn in the economy and people are having a tough time finding a job, they say, well, why not? There's nothing that's stopping me.
Nothing left to lose.
There's nothing stopping me. And so I might as well spend my time doing something productive and at least see if I can get this launched, in lieu of returning to the traditional workforce, or at least while you're looking for work.
And it's true, people that have jobs can also be enrolled in your program, right? There is a fee that people can become part of it to learn the tools of the trade as well, correct?
Well, we have the Quick Start Program that is for people who are unemployed, and we can help people get registered. The registration information is on our website. But then we have other services as well. So we do have resources for people that don't meet the criteria for that program, but we do a lot of one-on-one mentoring. In fact, that's really our sweet spot, is the one-on-one mentoring, helping people to think through their business model in a very critical way, and helping them figure out what it takes to get to the next level. Through our business plan competition program, which really is an all-year sort of a program, we provide technical assistance to help people write their business plan and take a little bit of the fear factor out of writing a business plan.
Because that would be knowing that you're putting all of your energy and probably resources into something. You want to make sure that they have a resource like you or someone that can really support them and say, yes, this is a good idea. Have you ever had people create plans where you said, oh, this is doomed for failure, and you knew it and they were so passionate about it? How do you break that kind of news to people?
You know what, I think that we don't really try to make an assessment about the validity of a business, if it's a good business, if it's a bad business, or what will be successful. Really what we encourage people to do is to do the work to figure that out for themselves. And I often encourage people to do the numbers first. Too many times people put together a business plan and they have a lot of words and it sounds great on paper. Then they put the numbers to it and they can't figure out how it's going to make money. And they've put so much energy into the plan initially that they're trying to, bend it to make it work, when in fact the business model is just fundamentally flawed. And so I encourage people to do the numbers first. Do your research, focus on the competition, see what else is out there, really define a market need that you are filling, and then do the numbers. And if the numbers work and you have the assumptions that are realistic to back it up, then we say go for it.
So no one has come to you with something like dog harmonicas or something like that?
But there are businesses out there that are so
different. Dog harmonicas are still available?
that if anyone had ever gone to them and said, this is a business, people would have laughed them, off the, out of the room. But they end up being successful.
Can you share any ones that were a big surprise to you that took off? Or even outside of, our area that maybe you knew about, that you're like, wow, is this really going to work? And all of a sudden it took off.
We actually tend to get businesses that are pretty everyday types of businesses. I think a lot of that is because the entrepreneurs that we tend to serve, minority women entrepreneurs, entrepreneurs in inner city communities, often are looking to serve a very identifiable
A specific need.
Yes.
Okay.
And
Is that
so
like more of a food and retail operation typically? Or?
there are a good number
Okay.
of food and retail. There are service businesses. I really think for a lot of them, they see a void in their own community, or they're a mom and they see a void. I wish I had this. So I think we don't tend to get a lot of what someone might call harebrained schemes.
Okay.
There are sometimes that we get people that are not realistic. So, for their first endeavor where they have no experience at all and they don't have any background or even personal resources, they come up with that it needs $3 million, $5 million in financing. Not quite realistic for a lot of people.
Yes. No, I would think not. Is there a network where people stay engaged or with the program where they can come back together for like reunions or something like that, where there's like a group meetings or something?
Yep, so we have a couple things. We have regular networking events, and we usually hold those in Newark, which is where we are based. We have regular networking events every third Thursday of the month, and those are called expert and answer events. It's open networking. It's a pretty free-flowing forum where we have people that can answer questions. And that's over food, so we have lunch. We have, again, one-on-one sessions, so people can sign up for one-on-one mentoring. We have memberships that enable that. We tend to stay very engaged with our clients for quite a long period of time. So, we like to be the type of resource that when people just need a sounding board, they pick up the phone and they call.
That's nice. And I saw your website. There's a lot of good stuff on the website.
There is some very good information on there, so I definitely encourage people to take a look at the website and really let us know what type of help they need, and then we try to work with them to get it.
Oh, that's wonderful. And what is the website? It'll be posted here magically on the screen here, but what is your website?
It's www.F as in Frank, E, L as in Larry, N as in Nancy, J.org, EiffelNJ.org.
Okay, good. We'll post that in the end as well, but in case people are looking, that's a good thing. So we'll be taking a break in a moment, and when we come back, can we highlight some do's and don'ts for people that are thinking of being entrepreneurs?
Sure.
I think that's always helpful. And if there's any favorite success stories, or if you want to highlight some of the businesses that have really launched and where people were able to sustain this idea of being their own boss and launching a dream, I think that's great.
Terrific.
Okay, super. We'll be back in a few moments with the Career Corner and Jill Johnson.
Local government, local educational institutions, and local community members all use cable access TV to communicate their message. They depend upon it as an affordable means of outreach. Public educational and government access television empowers local government agencies, individuals, and groups to use the media to speak directly to their constituents in a more direct and cost-effective way. Make sure everyone has a voice. Support your local PEG channels.
Hi, welcome back to the Career Corner with our guest Jill Johnson, talking about entrepreneurship and how to be your own boss. So you went through the process of leaving a really small company called Goldman Sachs to tag into your father's vision, right? You created this together?
Well, yeah, and I first worked with their company for several years, and then I did some consulting, independently writing business plans for .coms that were raising money during that era.
Okay.
And then it was after that he and I together started the organization.
So what were some of the bumps and bruises that you all took along the way that you grew from that really helped you be such an impactful organization that you are today? Because you're on solid footing and you're helping so many other people.
It was just like any other business. We really had to prove that there was a need for us to exist. And in the nonprofit world, where people think it's just so easy to go out there and ask a foundation for some dollars, and they're just going to write you a check magically, and you're on your way. It's just not that easy. And so there was really a need for us to prove that there was a need for what we were doing, especially given that there are several other resources out there that help small businesses, like several of the SBA resources, the Small Business Development Centers and SCORE. And so people said, those resources are there, so why something else? Why do you need to exist? And so that really, it was something that we had to demonstrate.
So how did you do that? How did you prove this is the space we're taking up and there is a place at the table for us? What were your steps you took to do that?
Well, we were very clear that we did not want to duplicate effort, which is why we did not initially do classes. With the SBDCs did business plan writing classes. In fact, I have taught some of the classes for business plan writing for the SBDC. We wanted to establish collaborative relationships with our various partners. And what was really a turning point was when we had been working for several years doing what we do. We had clients under our belt, but it was also when we got a contract with the Prudential Foundation to support and manage a business plan competition that they did for their nonprofit grantees.
Oh.
They did this competition because they wanted, and it was called Breaking the Gala Addiction. They wanted to get some of their grantees thinking about how they could generate earned revenue streams and start to develop some sustainable revenue streams for themselves. So we did that. We managed that. It was a very successful program. I had a great time doing it and working with nonprofits. It was, a little bit of a different experience for me. And it was after that that the Prudential Foundation really saw, and I think there were a lot of other people that saw, who else would have done this? Who else is there in the market? And we really increased our focus on providing services to companies, almost as a private label or subcontractor for people that wanted to do their own entrepreneurial training programs but didn't have the expertise. And so we said, we don't care what you call the program. It can be your program, but we'll run it for you. So we had to put on a very entrepreneurial hat and have that mindset about how we were operating as a nonprofit. And we've carved out a space really in the area for anyone that needs a business plan or help with a business plan or help in preparing an elevator pitch. We really are the go-to resource for that.
That's great, and it's so needed because a lot of people can have a PhD or an MBA, but does that always mean they're ready to launch their own business?
Absolutely not. You can have someone who has very little formal education who can be very, very successful just because they have strong entrepreneurial attributes.
Interesting.
They may be a person who is just gung-ho and willing to be very inquisitive and to stop at nothing to get their questions answered, and they're willing to dig deep and do the research necessary, but do that very quickly and go ahead and make a decision, and they're not afraid to take action.
Do you have a profile for the ideal background that you've seen people launch easier because of their background training? I mean, you grew up seeing your parents having their own business, so you said you kind of learned some of the path to success through that experience. What about people that have come from certain industries, or after being laid off, they bounce back quicker because they're from a certain sector or background? Is there anything that lends itself?
As far as that, no. I do think that having someone in your family or someone close to you that's been an entrepreneur, and I say that because you have seen more of the real side of being an entrepreneur. There are a lot of people who get into it and start experiencing a little bit of difficulty. They hit a few bumps and they say, wow, this is not for me. And when you have someone close to you who is an entrepreneur, you've seen the tough times and you understand what it takes. So you're, I think, a little bit more prepared in that regard.
When I give people career advice, especially college-age students, I always tell them to talk to somebody that's doing what they think they want to do, because some jobs look so fabulous and great on
From
the
the
outset.
outside, that's right.
Until they get in those doors and they realize it's, a dog-eat-dog world, and, you're going to be serving coffee for 3 years before they even let you fax something or whatnot. Is there a venue for people, the up-and-coming entrepreneurs, to talk to people that have been doing it to get even more of a feel for, is this for me, when they hear other people talk that have been through your program?
I don't know of a venue that would give them that direct experience, but I would say that people should talk to people that are entrepreneurs.
Or have their own shops or whatever. Okay.
Exactly, that have their own business. I think it can sometimes be a little tougher for people that are coming from very large corporations because they're used to having a very big infrastructure behind them. And when they don't have that anymore, it can be, a little bit of a shell shock for them. But, again, I think entrepreneurship is just so much about being willing to stick your neck out and find answers to questions, and being willing to talk to enough people to really get advice, being willing to take advice. That's a huge point, being coachable, not thinking that you do, in fact, have all of the answers. And, just really getting out there and creating a plan and going step by step to bring your vision to reality.
Are there some businesses in our local areas that you can highlight that have had a real successful launch over the past few years?
Yeah, we've actually worked with several businesses in the area. One of the stories that I like to talk about is Brick City Coffee in Newark, that's in the retail space at the Prudential Center.
Oh, nice.
One of the owners was a finalist in our very first business plan competition, and she was looking to do a coffee shop. And I had the pleasure of talking with one of the members of the Devils management team. We served on a board together in Newark, and he expressed that they were considering a coffee shop concept there. And so I ended up putting the two of them together. And she's the only member of the ownership group that is not part of the Devils management, and she's a minority woman, so that's very exciting. And then Better Bites, that is located on the corner of Raymond and Broad. They were also a finalist in our business plan competition. And that's just such a great shop, and there was such a need for it.
What's in there? What is Better Bites?
It's healthy food. It's healthy quick service food. They have the most amazing soy salmon salad.
Oh, really?
It's great. Yeah. And then we've worked with Diamond Doobies, which she was a finalist in our business plan competition, which is a natural and organic hair salon in Newark. And then there's a company right here in town, Parties. And worked with Susan to put together an action plan. She had an idea. She was doing it on the side at that time, didn't have the location. And she really has developed a fabulous business. But, we talked to her about just what the broader vision was and where it could go, and worked with her to figure out how she could possibly turn it into something full-time before she was really there yet.
Well, that's great. I have been to one of those parties, and they're adorable.
Yes.
Very, very sweet.
Yeah, and she's just so creative, and so it's just really, that's where I think I get the most fulfillment, is seeing businesses come to reality where someone had a dream and an idea, and you saw it on paper, and then next thing you know, they're up and running, and they're making a living doing it.
You feel like they're part of your babies. You're launching these new businesses and
absolutely,
seeing that.
and it really is very exciting.
What would be some tips for things to make sure people are doing when they're vetting their idea? Or if they have an idea, they woke up with a dream saying, you know what, I'm going to go for it. Can you give us a few points that they should definitely make sure they do?
Certainly. Well, anyone who's watching, who is thinking about starting a business, should think about attending our Next Level Conference and Business Plan Competition Awards Luncheon, which is March 29th at NJIT. And, I think going to events like that will help them to see what other people are doing.
And what's possible.
And what's possible and what it takes. I think that educating yourself in any way possible. So reading everything. Read the books of people who are successful. Learn the habits of
What do
people
you read?
who are successful.
I'd love to hear what do you read?
It's interesting. I just read a book. What's it called? The Checklist Manifesto, which is a great book. That, again, talks about processes and things like that. But the Checklist Manifesto was a great book. I'm also a huge fan of Good to Great, something that I think is just an all-encompassing concept.
And what about magazines? What magazines do you get? Do you get Entrepreneurial magazine?
I do. I tend to flip through a lot of the magazines. Sadly enough, I don't get so much time to read.
Okay.
But I think that also people who are thinking of starting a business, really need to think through what their personal needs are financially, so they know, kind of what's the threshold? What do I need to make if I'm going to do this on a full-time basis? They need to even think about how they might get something started on a part-time basis until it can generate the personal income that they need. They really need to think about their own their personality traits, and if in fact they have the attributes of an entrepreneur. Are they a person who can make decisions quickly? Analyze and do the analysis, but you need to do it quickly and then be willing to make the best decision that you can with the information that you have. There are no guarantees in entrepreneurship. There's no guarantee for success. And if you're willing to accept that, and you're able to believe in your own abilities to get it done, then you should consider being an entrepreneur and go for it.
So it's worth trying.
Absolutely.
Especially at the end of your days, if you're like, why didn't I go for it? At least, try it out and see with the right, in that context of doing your due diligence and going for it.
Right. Well, there's so many people, when you talk to them, talk to successful entrepreneurs, it's quite frequent that you will hear the story of the failures that they had. That's part of being an entrepreneur, is to try, and you try something and it didn't work, and when it's time to throw in the towel and say, okay, I need to completely revamp and move on. But you'll hear oftentimes, it's quite common, that people had one or more failures before they got to that success.
Yeah, at least one or more. So we're just about out of time. So thank you so much for being on the Career Corner. And we have your website here so people can find out about the great programs.
Great.
And I wish you continued success with helping so many of our local people be successful entrepreneurs.
Thank you so much. It was great being here.
Oh, yeah, so much good information. Thank you for joining us. Please check us out on YouTube. We'll be posting there for all of our shows. If you have any ideas of what you'd like to see, you can email me at heatherswift.net. And until we meet again, I wish you much career success.